am I still a father? Is my wife going to stick around? Is my son still going to see me as his dad? Do I still have a job in the military? Can I support my family? I mean, my Olympic dreams are over.
Gosh.
My military career is gone.
Thank you to our sponsors of the Inside Story Hunters podcast, Tiffany Wondros, CNR Services, Michael Valletta of Quick Cuts Media. Don't forget to subscribe at youtube.com, where you can follow our weekly episodes and get an automatic link to listen to our next guest sharing a part of their incredible inside story. So subscribe or listen on any podcast channel to your Inside Story Hunters podcast. Thanks for following us. Thanks for supporting us. Well, hello, insiders. This is Lori with a story, your host at the Inside Story Hunters podcast. Today, we have the beautiful opportunity to interview an incredible human being, John Register. He will not need my help to unveil his powerful inside story, but I want to take a few minutes to just share a little bit about John, and then we'll jump right in and let him just dazzle you as he did when I had the beautiful opportunity to listen to him speak as the keynote speaker out in Kansas City. I don't think there was a person in the room that didn't want to just jump up and hug this man, wasn't either crying, laughing. I mean, all the emotions, just what a powerful human being. And so let me tell you about John. John years ago failed to clear a hurdle as he had trained for the Olympics, a move that led to a tragic accident and altered his life forever. He had to have his leg amputated. He shifted his focus and embraced a new normal mindset. The decorated Persian Gulf War combat U.S. Army veteran, world champion, became a two-time Paralympic Games silver medalist, professional speaker, and a global influencer. John amputated his fears and founded the U.S. Olympic Committee Paralympic Military Sports Program. He is the author of an amazing book, 10 Stories to Impact Any Leader, Journal Your Way to Leadership and Success, and he launched that in the year of 2020. He works with business leaders to hurdle adversity, amputate fear, and embrace a new normal mindset to win life's medals. The artificial leg he used to win the silver medal is displayed in the Olympic and Paralympic Museum in Colorado Springs, Colorado. He has been speaking to corporations and at large association events and more for over 28 years. He's an amazing speaker. You are going to enjoy this interview tremendously. And let's not forget, if you wish to book John after listening to him and you have an event or you have a team that you wish to motivate or bring in some training, you're going through transition within your company, you can reach John at johnregister.com. So hang on, insiders, and here we go. Well, hello, John. Welcome to the Inside Story Hunters. The insiders are just, we're anticipating the most incredible inside story to ever be told. No pressure.
I am so honored to be on your show. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm happy to get in this conversation because I learn every time I'm on a podcast. So thank you so much for the invite.
No, it is truly my honor. I'm so grateful. I am humbled to have time with you. So let me not do any more of the talking and just fire away. Please tell your powerful story, however you'd like to teach us, inspire us, as you did the first time I got to listen to you as a keynote speaker.
I appreciate that. For those that don't know me, John Register. So who am I? I'm made up of a lot of factors, right? I don't think we have one singular identity, as many of you ladies are finding that out there, right? We have more about us, who we are, than what most people just see of ourselves.
Yes.
So first of all, I was a world-class athlete. I ran track and field for the University of Arkansas, Go Pigs. And I became a three-time All-American, earned four All-American honor, or actually four national championship titles with the Arkansas Razorbacks, and then went to two Olympic trials, once in the 110-meter high hurdles, and then once in the long jump as well. Later on, I would go on the 400-meter hurdles also. But after the Olympic trials, I joined the United States Army, who served in Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, loved the Army, was going to be a lifer in the military. And at the same time, I was on the Army's world-class athlete program track and field team. So
Amazing.
after coming back from Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield without a scratch, I was training for my third Olympic trials in the 400-meter hurdles. USA Track and Field News had picked me as the one to watch for the
Wow.
400-meter hurdles in 1996. So I was top 8 in the country, top 20 in the world, and just had a really good shot of making the team. But on May 17th, 1994, I misstepped a hurdle during a training session. The landing on my left leg caused a dislocation to my left knee. That in turn caused a disruption to my popliteal artery that runs right behind our kneecap. And in turn, 7 days later, I was left with a choice. After unsuccessful reconstructive surgeries for the artery, either use a walker or a wheelchair for the rest of my life, or undergo an amputation. So here I am,
I can't imagine.
two careers, double career. Career in the military. I'm going to officer candidate school, and USA Track and Field News has picked me as the one to watch for the 400-meter hurdles. I lost two those careers with one wrong step. So what do you do during that time? I was going down a downward spiral. Who am I now? What's my identity? That we think about the identity that we have in transition.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, am I still a husband? Am I still a father? Is my wife going to stick around? Is my son still going to see me as his dad? Do I still have a job in the military? Can I support my family? I mean, my Olympic dreams are over.
Gosh.
My military career is gone. My wife saw me struggling, and she comes running over. We're in the park. I'm in an inaccessible playground in a wheelchair, bawling my eyes out, right? Just can't catch her breath, just heaving sobs with this new identity. And she wraps her arms around me, says, "What is going on?" And I began to articulate to her everything that was in my head the night before. And that's when she says the words that stops my downward spiral. Yeah, yeah, John, we're going to get through this together.
Thank God. I mean, I would suspect she would say it, but gosh.
Well, we don't know, because the reason I'm having these thoughts, Laura, in the first place is because when I came back from Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, I saw a lot of families break up
Right.
because war and Operation Tempo, and separation in a high stakes environment causes disruption. And if we're not prepared for the disruption, God bless our military troops and the families that serve, will come home differently, no matter
Yes.
how much they had in a war, let alone a war that's even there. It's a different lifestyle. So I didn't know if she was going to stay around or not, with me being disrupted in my own life with this amputation. Now that was not my fear, was not her leaving. Let me be very clear.
Mm-hmm.
My fear was, Lori, am I still desirable?
Yeah.
That's what we're all in when it comes to transition. Do we still have what it takes? Are we still desirable to whatever widget, job, advancement, and high stakes transition that we're dealing with? So the ladies that are out there that are running the companies, you have to understand that you do have value. You do have worth, no matter what society or other people are trying to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
We have to elevate. And so that was a launching point for me. She undergirded me with that love. And in fact, on the playground, John Jr. was swinging, and he jumps off the swing, hits the ground, comes running over. "Hey, Mom, Dad, you see my big jump?" And he, in that moment, validated me as his father and had created his new normal. So let's then fast forward, cut across the field. I interned my service in the military. I get a job working for the United States Army world-class athlete program. So I'm once an athlete. Now I'm an administrator in that different capacity, but helping my former teammates become Olympians. And at the same time, I'm swimming for physical therapy. I get so fast in the water that I wind up making the Paralympic swim team, which are for games with athletes with physical disabilities and visual impairment. Who knew? I thought it was like the Special Olympics. No, that's a total different um, sporting event. It's for cognitive, mental health conditions. Uh, this one is for people with physical disabilities, visual impairment. It's the parallel games to the Olympics. Who knows?
But
At those
John, if
games,
you
let's see.
forgive me for interrupting, but I have to say, from a timeline standpoint, your leg is amputated in 2000 and I'm sorry, 1994, and in 28 plus years you've been a keynote speaker, right? Let's do the math. We're talking, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 years. Next thing you're out there telling a story, you're swimming fast, and forgive me for interrupting your story, but it's that you to change your life. I mean, some of us, it take 2 years is nothing to reinvent yourself.
It's and it's a gradual process. So I was going through a lot of changes. My body was changing. My understanding about disability was changing. I was sharing stories around the change process as I'm still going through the change process. I'm still, I'm not in the big changes now, but there's smaller changes that are still going on in my life of how I show up and what I'm doing. And I think that's key. But we have to begin. And that is where a lot of folks they settle or they wallow in what used to be instead of taking of what used to be and realizing that is now gone.
Right.
I don't get access to that. We can talk about my model in this, but I no longer have access to this. So now I have to begin to revision how I'm going to show up. And this is hard. It's hard work. I do not sugarcoat this. This is very deep, hard work. We just don't pie in the sky, Jack in the Box, Burger King, McDonald's, and get it. This can take years to understand your value back in society again. Because we have so many people, so many of society impressing upon us the negative.
Yes.
Think about it from the standpoint of even Captain Hook, a little easy Disney movie. Captain Hook is the villain. Why? Why are we so scared of Captain Hook? Because he has an above the wrist amputation. He's dark. He's mysterious. Got his arm put up by TikTok the crocodile. But when I look at that now in society, and I see ghosts and goblins show up on Halloween on my doorstep, most have disfigurements or mental health related conditions.
Mm.
So I interpret that to say, okay, wait a minute, I'm now an amputee. Am I the villain? Is this what society sees me as now? So this is very hard work to get over once because we've internalized this, we've been socialized with this. So we have to break away from this new vision and attack these hurdles in our lives. And that's what I was doing as I was beginning to swim for physical therapy. I was attacking the hurdles, my own cognitive dissonance that was sharing that I was less than.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go out and wear shorts to prove to myself and prove to others that I'm still John. I just walk different with this other leg. I do a little bit of a limp now. My favorite restaurants, right? So I got to begin to grow up and say that this disability is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have to take a negative connotation to the word because we see other words around dis that are positive. I can discover. I can have distinction. I can have discipline. I can display myself in a different way. I can dispel some myths. So disability doesn't have to be a negative. I can embrace it, say it enough times over and over again, and because I'm a doer, I can take power back over the word.
Which I was going to jump in there and ask you in 2021 when you were at the World Expo, and they said you were the disability ambassador, and you were on Fox News, and I thought, disability ambassador? How does that sit with you? Because you just taught me how to change my mindset of disability what power do we give to that word?
Right. And we don't have to give the power to the word that we think is the negative of the word. Because disability is only a part of who I am. It's not all of who I am. And we can open up a conversation around it, which I try to do around the world when we work with our State Department and having worked with, 3 different U.S. ambassadors. I was
Incredible.
recommended by then Secretary of State, um, Colin Powell, to be one of 8 members to advise the Secretary on disability foreign policy. I knew nothing about this stuff, right? I'm very new. I just built a military support program for wounded veterans, and all of a sudden I'm on a disability advisory committee. So,
Wow.
why am I in this room? Right? I'm the sports guy. Uh, and then he left, and Condoleezza Rice comes in, Senator Rice. And so I'm listening during her tenure at the Department of State because I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of listening. Let me shut up and just gather information. So then when Secretary Rice leaves and Secretary Clinton comes in, now I have an understanding. And Secretary Clinton, okay, she's a Razorback. I went to the University of Arkansas. I'm a
And you're like,
Razorback.
oh, this is easy now. Not,
Yeah, well, I would
it's
think
your
it was
home
easy, but
team.
we had
Yeah.
a connection.
Yes.
And even though kind of not aside kind of story, I'm in the room and we're going around the room and everybody's introducing themselves, and it's like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and her head is just like, because I know she's been up since probably 3 o'clock in the morning. And these jobs are very hard jobs, and there's a lot that's on the mind. And now she's got to meet with this group of people, and they're all throwing their cards down, but you already know she's in the room. So I'm like, how am I going to? I'm going to get her attention on what I want to do. And I wasn't thinking about this, but I was trying to figure out how to do it as I'm listening. I said, who am I? I'm just the sports guy in the room. So when it comes to me, he's kind of still nodding and listen to everybody, kind of, do the look up so she can stay awake. And so it's funny, we all do this stuff. We're all human. And so I don't say a word. So there's a break in the flow. And I say, well, afterwards, when she looks up, catches my eyes and says, well, Madam Secretary, I bang my hand on the table. I'm a Razorback. And she just brightens up, right? She says, well, we'll just have to call the hogs after this is over. And so now we have a banter going
So
back and forth
smart.
for
Hmm.
like about a minute, right? We're just going back and when were you there and how was it? So we're talking now. Now we're in dialogue with
Yes.
connection. And then
The
she's
beauty of
asked me,
sports, though, the beauty of
the,
sports, everything that
yes,
that brings out your powerful story. Sorry.
yes.
Hmm?
Yeah, well, I think it's sports, but I also think it's connection. Right? We
Yes.
connected through the University of Arkansas and her going to law school, her husband law school, and so all these things that connect us is connections, and that's what we have to really think about for this. Um, and so she says, "What can I do for you? What you asking for?" And I said, "Well, we have our Olympic athletes who are sports envoys. They go around the world, you send them out to the State Department, and they get a chance to tell their stories and do some great work on behalf of the Department of State. I would like to have our Paralympic athletes do the same thing." And she calls her aide over, write that one down. And it's done, right? So now I'm going
Wow.
around the world and having brought in Paralympic athletes. And why this is important, Lori, and going back to our conversation around this, is because with an Olympic athlete, there's just kind of this sports story that they try to implement into a country. But with a Paralympic athlete, it's deeper because it goes to family members, it goes to access, it goes to when I'm going to have a meeting someplace, I better make sure that in this other country, there's accessibility to get there when they might not have, quote unquote, an ADA or a law that's in compliance with that. And so we're helping to break down stereotypes and barriers and saying we're putting these individuals with disabilities in leadership positions in the United States, and they're going to be our lead delegation. So now there's a scrambling. How do I get them in the room and in all these places when it's not accessible? So we're opening up a different conversation about what value actually is without having to tell somebody that they're not being compliant or whatever the law might be in their on their books.
And this
So
is your,
I'll stop there. I haven't finished the
no,
whole
but
story, but I'll stop for a second.
to recognize that on May 17th, 1994, your life changes. And I may be wrong to say this, but part of, if I had experienced it, I would say my life's over. And then fast forward through these experiences, like it is so ordained. It is so, was so predetermined that you would be the man who would have the ability internally to overcome and pursue all the things you're talking. How many lives have you impacted through the years? Thousands,
It is,
more,
you
hundreds of thousands.
just don't know. I have no clue, right? But I think it's not unique to any one of us if we can just have, and I love the word that you use, an ordained. This is something that was ordained from the beginning.
Mhm.
And, I can't remember who said the quote, but, I think it's Mark Twain, Kevin Clemens says, the two most important days of our lives are when we are born and when we find out why. Uh, a lot of us just don't find out why we were placed here. We follow everyone else and don't
Yes,
follow us.
right.
So after I swam for physical therapy, I make this team, and find out that people are running and jumping on artificial legs. I have an artificial leg made for running. 4 years later, I win the silver medal in Sydney, Australia.
Incredible.
So here comes full circle, just on a different path
Right.
than I was designed to be on, ordained. And
Mhm.
it wasn't in my path. I don't want to lose a leg. I don't want anyone to lose a leg to learn my lesson. I
No,
don't want anyone to have to go to a war to learn the lessons that I've learned, right?
that's right.
But I can certainly offer this with the mindset that you can win the medals in your life.
Mhm. Because it is so not the same level, but it is so important to me. And I was sharing with you that as a woman, some of the most crucial points in my life, the pivotal moments, and one being as a single parent, I would never wish on my worst enemy to be a mom and a dad. Forget about just being a single parent. Put on both hats and raise two young men. And by the way, I'm not a man, right? So, but going through that journey, those struggles, and recognizing how strong it made me and what an incredible different human being I've become, how I've shown up differently.
Yeah. I have lots of thoughts about this because I do have a spouse, and we've been together for this year be 37 years when it comes
God
to August.
bless. Beautiful.
And it's an amazing journey that we've been on, and it's just never easy. It's there's some great moments, and then there's sometimes we're struggling. But that's the two kind of becoming the one, and that's hard work. It's you have to work at it and keep working at it. But I will say there's some um, challenges and successes. It's just how we view it and how we see it. And
Hmm.
I know in my business or in I'll just take it to parenting. There were times in my life where I wanted to share something with my son or my daughter that I knew they weren't going to hear it from me.
Hmm.
So I was able to surrogate somebody, another man, another person, another woman that might have been in their life that could say it, the same thing, and they would hear from them because I was dad
Yes.
or Alice was mom, right? And so there's some things we have to begin to understand who's in our sphere of influence that we know, like, we trust, that
Yes.
we can give that surrogate to in order to get the thing that we think through done. My dad did it with me. There were some things I wasn't listening for him, so he went through a man named Stanley Redwine, and Stanley would tell me some of the things that my dad was saying, and I would hear it from Stanley, but that I couldn't hear from my dad during our time of kind of butting heads. And so now it's the same thing that we can do one with each other. Who's in our sphere of influence? It happens in business. We don't know everything about business. So therefore, we find a mastermind or someone else that can cover our blind spots. Maybe I don't know how to do my taxes, and what I need to should I be an S corp or should I be, whatever it is, right? And so we find people that help us in our journey along the way. And if we're trying to do it by ourselves, absolutely we'll be burned out.
Yes.
Absolutely,
And
we'll
why do
struggle.
it so through the difficult way? I mean, a
Right,
few years ago, I learned for the first time the power of pivoting. And what was really disappointing and exciting at the same time is when I brought it up, business owners who've had multiple businesses, been in business 30, 40 years, whatever, they're like, I pivot every other year. Pivoting is such a good thing. That's a good thing. Congratulations, Lori. Look, you should
right.
consider this. And you're like, why didn't you tell me that along the way?
Pivoting is, I mean, so it became like this in the speaker community, this negative word. And so I'm always saying, why is that negative? And my son, who's a basketball coach, said, well, Dad, actually, the pivot gives us at least 4 choices in basketball.
Mm.
I can, if I'm stopped and I have my pivot foot, I can pass the ball off to another teammate. I can kind of jab step, rain a three on them, or wherever I'm at. If I still have my dribble, I can fake up and then dribble to the basket. Or if I'm really stuck and I got double team on me, I'll timeout. So we have options with the pivot. And so we just have to know how to use the options that are available to us. If we don't even know the rules of the game, then how do we know that we can call a timeout? How do we know that we can dribble to score? How do we know that we can pass the ball off? How do we know that we can shoot? So those are the things that we have to know about the game and business. And we can only do that by being in the business and surrounding ourselves with a mastermind.
And I know that you teach about auditing your sphere of influence. Who we hang out with personally and professionally makes the difference. Digging in and getting real with that. Pivoting. Everything you're discussing is what you're teaching to these corporations and makes you unique coming in your training sessions to not just say, okay, read this book and here's how we become a great leader.
Yeah. It's the and I was listening to another speaker today who hit the nail on the head. A lot of times, like in a podcast like this or some things that I'll do, there's a lot of information that goes out, but there's not a lot of implementation to the information.
Right.
And so the learner, the person that's listening to this, it is your responsibility to activate and to uh, uh, become a person who actually implements what you do. Right? So that's not my job. My job is to give you what I believe might be like, for example, uh, in my model, I call it the three R model, or it could be big R, lowercase e, power to the three. And that's the reckoning, the revision, and the renewal. These are 3 hurdles I think we have to overcome in order to have and live a more resilient life. Right. So the reckoning moment is hurdle when we realize we do not get back, we desire to have back, just some type of trauma has impacted our life. The second one we talked a little bit about, and that's the revision, having and casting a new vision and then committing to the new vision that we said that we wanted to do. And then third is the renewal, which begins with the very hard step, which is the rebirth. The rebirth is hard because a commitment has been made. And that's where people don't want to live. That's where I live, but that's where a lot of folks don't want to live. Why? When the doctor took my leg off, that was a commitment. I do not get my leg back. So a commitment is made when you cannot get back. It is impossible to get back what you were thinking about before. It's gone. There's no way back to it. The chasm has been crossed, the door's been shut, and you might have phantom pain and be able to think about it. That piece of your life is over with, right? And so now, when you're over here in this new spot, in this rebirth, you don't know how to be an expert over here anymore. You're no longer the expert. You've gone from C-suite to the CEO. First time. You've seen what a CEO's done. You've kind of watched from afar, but now you are the CEO.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother ball game.
Whole other ball game, right?
It's a whole I mean, I remember one day I thought, oh, this will be so great to take my virtual company and we'll go multi-states. We'll be nationwide. It'll be so great. So I started hiring in New Jersey and Colorado and wherever. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second. Wait, there's compliance and there's laws and there's different rules and regulations and different approaches. And I was like, how did I get in the seat? This wasn't the idea. I was just doing something fun. And suddenly I went from the business manager in one of my favorite books, E-Myth, and the revised edition. But I'm a manager. Then the next thing I'm a president, and suddenly you're a CEO, and you're like, it sounds cool, but you better be ready.
I don't know if you can. I mean, you're in the job, and there's who do you actually talk to, because it's really hard to talk. You can't really talk to everybody else in the organization because you are the one that's guiding and having the vision. You're trying to hold everybody else to account to inspire them to get to where the company needs to be. So you can't be all in the weeds of all those things anymore that used to be when you were actually doing the operations stuff, right? You need to have this kind of separation and have a very strong HR person right there with you that you
Yes.
can kind of put full confidence in to help you get the what I'm talking values executed, right? Because you have to have the vision, write the vision, make it plain, and then you have to have a way to manage it. So the mission has to be going forward, and we're measuring against the mission. And then how are we measuring the values? How are we going to hire and fire people based upon the values of what we say we want, how we want to operate in our ethics and our values, moving the organization forward. And that can be that's some tough work. And it can take 6 months to 9 months to try to really figure that out. Maybe a full year before someone feels kind of okay. I think I got the reins. Now, if you've been a CEO before, it's probably a little bit easier because you know what to do in some of those situations. But I'm talking about for the new person.
Right.
Think about when you first stepped in
That's
to
it.
the executive role.
Yeah,
When that look came on your face, like, oh crap, what did I just get myself into?
that's right.
So
You wake up
that's
in the
what I'm
middle
talking
of the
about.
night and say, am I kidding myself? That imposter syndrome gets so real.
It's so real. And that's what I'm talking about. So people, they want to put on an air that everything is okay, but internally they're like the feet are paddling as fast as they want under the water. And so I knew that when I became the CEO of a $5.5 million organization. It was no different for me. And even I was just an acting CEO, right? I was waiting I couldn't for another executive get in there to take over for me. And the that's what I'm talking about in the renewal process of this rebirth. We don't have all the information that we need, and we're not comfortable enough yet. Now, I don't want to use the word comfort because I don't think we need to be comfortable. If we're comfortable, we're losing. So
I don't think
we
you've
have to.
ever been comfortable. And
We're
I
never
mean
we're never
that
comfortable.
I mean, really, you're in sports and you take it to the Olympics, then you got to move it to the Paralympics, and then you got to start teaching CEOs how to not
Yeah.
have a meltdown. I mean, there might be a good idea for you to consider being comfortable once in a while.
Yeah, I was listening to it. I'm on this right now because Bill Bachrock, he just came in at the National Speakers Association. He's a very successful. He's not really a speaker anymore, but he does a lot of training in financial planning. He says, "If comfort is your goal, success is not in your future."
It's so true. Yeah.
Right? And he says, so you become comfortable by doing. You have to be a doer, and you find yourself in the doing. It might not feel great, but
Hmm.
you're doing it, and you just put in the work. And even I have the quadrants of what work is, right? So some people say you just got to work hard. Well, I'm not sure that's the whole thing, right? So because and if you look at the four quadrants, you got the four boxes. You probably know people that work hard and they have a great reward. You probably know people that have worked hard, low reward. You probably know
Absolutely.
people that don't work so hard, high reward, and you probably know some people that don't work so hard, low reward. So I really want people to be in one of two boxes. And the first box is not working so hard, high reward, because that's probably telling you got systems in place that
Right.
you're so good at delegating things that the organization can run at a high efficient level without you putting in so much of an effort of your own self. And plus, you do want those that are hard workers, because they're thinkers or whatever, they're widget folks or whatever it is, and they're getting good output from what the product is that they're doing. So those are two boxes I would say. The other one, the other box, the not working hard and not producing results, we probably want to let those folks go. So we want to be in those kind of first three right there.
Incredible. And well, I mean, we haven't talked about the fact that you decided to also become an author along the way. I mean, the question is really, is there not a seat that you haven't filled in a high level situation when it comes to you've written books, you're an Olympian, you're a Paralympian? I mean, it just goes on and on. And I think I hear my tone of voice saying it as if it's like, why are you doing it? It's so impressive. Is really, I want to make sure that I'm getting across to the insiders and listening to you speak and present. That'll be something, make sure that, people take advantage of the opportunity of what you bring. I watched a room of 400 powerhouse professionals, men and women. Literally, I know I'm looking around at the table I'm sitting at, and we all were crying, laughing. I wanted to stand up. I had to move. I had to find paper. The room was like we were warming up to go run. So talk about the book.
So the book I wrote for the last Secretary of State that I spoke for, Mike Pompeo, and that was right in February 28th or February 20 something of 2020. So we're about to go into the pandemic. We have about our ambassadors are all in the room in the Ben Franklin room, and they're about to get their marching orders. So every one of the ambassadors from around the world is in that room, and what they're doing is they are trying to figure out what's happening with this pandemic that's about to come, right? The world
Right.
half the world shutting
Yes.
down. So if you remember that time, the administration was saying, "Well, we don't know if this thing is actually real or not." Some of our ambassadors are being asked to leave countries that they're serving in because the pandemic is so great in their area. People are dying left and right, and they can't get their people home. These expats back home to the United States because these airports are shut down because of the pandemic. So they were in this crazy kind of spin. And I called my wife and I said, Alice, the world is shutting down. I said, that's number one. So and then I said, how do I get something into these people's hands to have a story and then some way to actually take that story to have their own story to help their people transition through this time and these very high stakes transitions. So I wrote the book, 10 Power Stories to Impact Any Leader, Journal Your Way to Leadership Success. So after you read this book, you should have 10 of your own stories that you can lead through high stakes transition in your own area, whether it's mergers or acquisitions, or you got a new way that you're thinking about how you're going to run the company. So uh, you have something reorganization that's happening. All these things are it's done so that my story kind of is an impetus for your story, platform baseline for your story. It's in paperback form now. I think I have a copy around here someplace, but you can get
Well,
it.
we'll
So
make sure to include the information, and by all means, let me just mention and click on the link below in order to subscribe to be able to hear more of your inside story, but to also your website, johnregister.com. It's the way to amazing videos, incredible information, how to book you for a future speaking engagement. And I have to just say how serendipitous that it is when the time you're talking about, I was in the same room when they shut down the world in Kansas City, where I met you and heard you speak. And the announcement was, if you have a flight, you probably want to go make arrangements to make it happen today. And by the way, the big games are not happening, basketballs. And I think
right,
people were crying over the basketball games going away
right,
more
right,
than the
right.
fact the world was shutting down, speaking of
Right.
sports again. So
Yeah. And so, just real quick, Lori, we also have another thing that we're doing for executives. It's really low entry point. And you'll see my on my tag here, johnregister.beehive.com, BEEHIIV. And so we're having conversations called Elevate Life Executive Experience. And so this is a group that you can come into. We talk, I think, about 3 times a week, just to help executives really have a community that they can relate to, and we to CEOs about what some of the challenges, how they've overcome them.
amazing, amazing. Is there anything else that you feel that our insiders need to know today? I mean, I said to you before we started, could I have 16 hours with you today? And for some reason you said no. But even I don't feel like we've dug in even just a little bit as to the idea of what internally it makes you who you are, and the inside story hunters looking for the opportunity to help unveil a powerful story like your own. And obviously, you've done this for many years, but close with the inside story. What what
But
what do we need to
I
know?
think the inside story is you are more than capable. You were designed specifically for a purpose. I believe my creator, God, has given me breath in my body, breathe into me this life that I get a chance to live. And it's my obligation, it's my duty to breathe life into others. Call this inspiration. It's from the Latin word inspiro, which means to breathe into. And if I'm all about breathing life into other individuals, I have no room to take that away because my creator didn't tell me to take life, he add life to. And so if I'm always adding life, then people are finding out their purpose, their passion, and their presence on how they're showing up in their sphere of influence. So in Inspired Communications International, we call it with the central model, the central motto of go forth, inspire your world. Go is your command, forth is your direction, inspire is your vocation, your because only you can do this work, and world because you can only do this work in your sphere of influence. So I say, Lori, to your team and everybody that's out there, go forth, inspire your world. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been amazing.
John, now go forth and continue to inspire the world. And thank you again for the honor to have time with you today. And again, insiders, johnregister.com, and we'll make sure to include that information. Take a look below, and by all means, reach out, get to know John, read his book, and bring him in to speak to your team. So have a blessed day, John.
Thank you, Lori. Bye for now.
Thank you.